Hello.
Are ready to go live, folks? Yeah? Okay. We're ready?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not, is that, we're just there? We're in? We're ready?
Marina, can you make sure they get my good side?
Should I do a song first? Just kidding.
All right. We're going to call to order this meeting on January 24th, 2023. Do a roll call.
President Davidson.
Here.
Vice President Boyd.
Here.
Trustee Rosenbaum.
Here.
Trustee Kahn.
Here.
Trustee Hopwood. Trustee Dana.
Here.
Trustee Garcia Bustamante.
Here.
Superintendent Wells.
Here.
All right, we will now do the mission and vision statement and the meeting norms.
All right. The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Meeting norms. Maintain a focus on what is best for our students. Ensure a safe environment for all views to be expressed, treating each other, staff, and the public respectfully. Endeavor to find common solutions to issues through collaboration without sacrificing one's beliefs in what is best for students. Make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind, while others are allowed to express their own points of view, even if one disagrees.
Okay, I apologize. I was scrolling and the meeting norms were before the Pledge of Allegiance. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we're now going to do the approval of the agenda. So if there are any questions on the agenda, if we need to move anything, or if we have a motion, we'll take that now.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are moving right along, and we've got our spotlight on McGregor. Superintendent Wells, would you like to introduce this one?
Sure. Tonight we have our spotlight on McGregor by our dual threat, I call him. He is the principal of both McGregor and Albany High School, Principal McNally.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about McGregor High School, and then actually I'm going to be highlighting a person more than anything else who's pretty essential to our program. So McGregor is the other high school in Albany. Albany legally has two separate high schools, Albany High and McGregor High School. I've been principal of McGregor High for 6 years now, actually twice as long as I've been principal for Albany High. And McGregor, as a continuation school, focuses on maintaining very small class sizes as a place for students who need additional support to reach those graduation requirements. McGregor is a voluntary transfer program, so all students are there because they want to be there and they realize it's one of the better places for them. And one of the really key parts of McGregor is the community and the supports that we try to build around all of our students. And so a really key part of that support is Miss Diane Peterson, who I'm going to ask to come up and talk a little bit about what she does with McGregor. Miss Peterson has been with McGregor since 2001. Which makes her the longest serving high school counselor we have in Albany, and has been with the program through many different changes, but the whole time keeping students at the center. So Ms. Peterson, you want to come talk about the work you do as a counselor?
Hi, I'm Diane. It's my 22nd year at McGregor. McGregor started in 1980, and some of you not old timers, some of you people who've been around for a long time remember Virginia Bem, and she was a teacher at the high school. And one day she just marched a class of kids out of the high school and said, we're starting a new school because the comprehensive high school wasn't working for some of the kids, and it was a small group, and here we are again. You do the math, 1980 till now. We still are a small group. This year we have 28 kids on the books right now. That's pretty much what we've had in my whole time here for 22 years. The first thing we do when we get a McGregor student is I meet with them. They meet the teachers. We talk about what their goals are. Is it to get a diploma? Is it to test out of high school? Is it to go to a 4-year school? And really, we try to find out what each kid wants and not tell them what we want for them. Once we know the goal, then we all as a staff work with the kids to get to their goals. I meet with the kids at least every grading period. We have 6 6-week grading periods. Usually there's at least one check-in halfway through to just make sure, how are you doing on your credits? How's your attendance? The kids now have a blend of Albany High and McGregor classes. So for the Albany High classes, I monitor, how they're doing, checking the grade books and Aries, just as the parents are, and then calling them in and saying like, hey, I noticed this class, these look good, got to work on that. So it's just a lot of juggling with the kids, getting them to, this year, almost all of them, the current seniors, their goal is to graduate. We had a couple of kids pass the CHESP, which is the California High School Proficiency Exam, earlier this year, because they just decided they were done with high school, but they showed that they had mastery, so we're happy for them. This is a great job. This is a great place to do it. I love every group of kids. They're all different. Darren and I were talking today, and I was realizing that my first class of 2001, they're 39 years old now. So I guess I was probably the youngest ever counselor at 12 when I started. This year we've started, all the McGregor kids are in one advisory, and we've started some presentations during the advisory time. We've had Contra Costa College come talk to the kids. It was really great because one of the students had gone to a continuation high school, and she actually really related to the kids a lot about sort of starting over in college after maybe not feeling totally successful in high school. We had the California Conservation Corps come a few weeks ago to talk about their program. That's really neat. And then I don't know if you saw in the news in Monterey when all the water was everywhere. In the paper, they had an article, and the California Conservation Corps was working to clear up a lot of the mess. We're working on getting Berkeley Youth Alternatives to come in the next couple weeks, Job Corps. Just trying to give the kids opportunities. In the spring, we'll be going to community colleges where we take the bus to Contra Costa College. We have a visit to the college totally tailored to each McGregor kid. So if no one's interested in automotive, we don't go see automotive. If everyone's interested in culinary, then we're going to spend most of the time in culinary. So we pull the kids and say, what do you want to see? I contact the colleges and I say, we want to see these things, and it's totally tailored to our kids. So I think that's it. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer.
Well, you go back as far as I do, almost, but not quite.
Yeah, Gloria Galindo.
But you've just done an amazing job in your time, and I remember back way before that, actually, because a lot of my friends' children wound up there. And Devin McDonald used to sneak out of Albany High and hide in my office at Berkeley High at the time. And now he owns Mr. Mops, and he's been made so many kids have done so many good things because they had that kind of protection. So, and you were a great part of it. So I just
Thank
want
you.
to
And
thank you.
that's a great point. We do have a lot of kids that come back to us and they're like, I did finish college, went into the military, became a police officer. I like to think that the time at McGregor High School is a tiny part of your life. It does not need to define you. And we try to give kids just the chance to sort of reinvent themselves. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That was really, really cool to hear more about. We will now move on to our recognition. So this is our recognition. More?
Well, tonight, our recognition is, it's coming up on the screen momentarily, is the recognition of our proclamation, our African-American proclamation. As you know, next month is February month, and it has been officially declared as the African-American History Month. And we have our purpose, the background information, and we have the proclamation that will be read by one of our parents in the district, the president of our Black Parent Alliance group, Linda Williams. I think she's coming on momentarily. In the interim, I guess we can let the audience read themselves.
I think she's ready.
Oh, great.
All right, Linda.
Hello. I can't turn my video on, so just bear with me. You get to see my name in the blank square. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for inviting me to read the proclamation for Black History Month. And I'll begin. Albany Unified School District Board of Education, resolution number 2022-23-17, proclaiming February as Black History Month. Whereas Americans of African descent helped develop our nation in countless ways, those recognized, unrecognized, and unrecorded. And whereas African American history reflects a determined spirit of perseverance, cultural pride, innovation, and trends in the struggle to equally share in the opportunities of a nation founded upon the principles of freedom and liberty for all people one day. And whereas in August 1619, the first documented Africans arrived in the English colony of Virginia. The group recorded upon arrival as 20 and odd Negroes was part of a larger group of West Africans enslaved by Portuguese slave traders. They were on their way to Veracruz aboard a Portuguese ship when they were captured off the coast of Mexico by an English warship and transported to Virginia, where they were put ashore at what is now Hampton, Virginia, and sold as involuntary laborers or indentured servants. And whereas slavery had not yet been institutionalized, so the Africans were informed they would work under contract for a certain period of time before being granted freedom and the rights afforded other settlers. However, while European indentured servants were listed along with their year of expected freedom, no such information accompanied the names of the African indentured servants. And whereas the historic arrival of the group of 20 and odd Negroes marked the beginning of the trend in colonial America, where people of Africa were taken unwillingly from their homeland, transplanted to a foreign land, where they were condemned to a lifetime of slavery and racial discrimination. And whereas during the course of the slave trade, an estimated 50 million African men, women, and children were lost to their native continent, through only about 15 million arrived safely to a new home. The others lost their lives on African soil or along the Ghanaian coast, or finally in holds on the ships during the dreaded Middle Passage across the Atlantic Ocean. And whereas African Americans suffered enslavement and subsequently faced the injustices of lynch mobs, segregation, and denial of basic fundamental rights. Whereas, despite slavery, African Americans in all walks of life have made significant contributions throughout the history of the United States, including through the writings of Booker T. Washington, Phyllis Wheatley, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, Ralph Ellison, Zora Neale Hurston, and Alex Haley. Music of Mahalia Jackson, Billie Holiday, John Coltrane, Bessie Smith, and Duke Ellington. Resolve of athletes such as Jackie Robinson, Althea Gibson, Jesse Owens, Wilma Rudolph, and Muhammad Ali. Scientific advancements of George Washington Carver, Charles Drew, Benjamin Banneker, and Mae Jemison. Vision of leaders such as Frederick Douglass, Mary McLeod Bethune, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King Jr., and Shirley Chisholm. And bravery of those who stood on the front lines in the battle against oppression, such as Sojourner Truth, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Rosa Parks. Whereas in 2020, we watched the murder of George Floyd, an unarmed Black man by a white police officer, and the public lynching of Ahmaud Arbery by a trio of white vigilantes who chased down Mr. Arbery and shot and killed him in broad daylight, and the horrific murder of Breonna Taylor, an EMT paramedic from Louisville, Kentucky, who was sleeping in her bedroom when she was slain by bullets fired by police. And whereas from these tragedies rose an awakening and a reckoning among communities across the world, and the legacy of John Lewis lives on in Tasha Brown and Stacey Abrams as they continue to fight to retain our voting rights. An African-American woman, Dr. Kizmika Corbett, led the development of the COVID-19 vaccine. And in 2021, Kamala Harris became the first female vice president and the highest ranking female official in US history, as well as the first African-American and first Asian American vice president. Whereas in 1976, Black History Month was established as a month-long celebration to reflect on the history, teaching, and achievements of African Americans. And whereas the history and contributions of African American citizens have consequently or consistently been overlooked, misinterpreted, and undervalued in the curriculum of public education institutions prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And whereas the History Social Science Framework of California Public Schools, kindergarten through grade 12, states that the history curriculum of community, state, region, nation, and world must reflect the experiences of men and women of different racial, religious, and ethnic groups, and must be integrated by every level. And whereas the teaching of African American history and recognition of Black History Month is not an attempt to instill guilt or regret in the descendants of those who perpetrated acts of enslavement, violence, and hatred, or to attempt to further victimize the descendants of those who were enslaved, brutalized, or suffered injustice. And whereas the teaching of African American history and recognition of Black History Month is an attempt to uplift and empower communities to teach our children to respect and honor the contributions of African descendants in America. Therefore, be it resolved that the Albany Unified School District's Board of Trustees proclaims the month of February 2023 as Black History Month and encourages all Albany schools to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional activities. Passed and adopted by the Governing Board of Education of the Albany Unified School District of the County of Alameda this 24th day of January 2023 by the following vote.
I will take a motion to,
Well,
we should do questions and comments first.
Point of order, actually. Number one, I want to thank Linda for reading that, and, I miss her. This is not listed as an action item, so I'm going to request that we formally move this as a recognition to an action item, and then I would like to move that we adopt the resolution number 2022-2317 proclaiming February as Black African American History Month as an action item. With the spelling mistakes that were corrected on this form. Thank you, Dr. Wells.
We've not in the past had it in the action items section, but we've taken an approval vote on it in this.
Which means we have to take a vote, which makes it an action item. So I just want to make sure that we formally know that. So do I have a second?
Second.
Assuming that we all agree that it's an action item.
Just a point of order. Typically, and it's the chair, it's your discretion, but typically how we've done it the last 3-4 years is that folks make comments and the chair gets each person an opportunity to give comments. And then at the very end, after we have the comments and acknowledgement, the chair goes ahead and calls for the vote at that time. And so that's what we're accustomed to. And I think it works really well, and I suggest we stay with that. Otherwise, it gets a little confusion.
I didn't quite understand, but it's okay. We'll talk.
Well, I think
My ears don't work.
It's okay. I think what he's saying is we do take action to approve it being the resolution.
Right.
And the recognition, but it's separate from our business
Yes.
action items that we put so much later in the meeting so that we can keep this one at the start of the meeting.
Okay. So that was my only comment.
Okay.
So now I understand, or maybe I don't. That's fine. It's not.
It's a good thing we have a workshop coming up and we should discuss this. So let's definitely make sure we bring this up with Harold and make sure we're doing it legally and properly. Okay, if anybody has comments, thank you, Ms. Williams.
It's actually in the ed code, so I looked it up. But it's not a big deal. So I made a motion, but I don't know if there's other comments.
Well, there was a second.
I didn't hear.
What I was suggesting, and I'm trying to be clear here, is that before we entertain a motion, that we give all folks an opportunity to comment
Correct.
on the resolution. And then the
Somebody
chair,
asked that we have a motion, so I made a motion.
and then the chair can entertain a motion, and then we keep it in that order, and that way it stays kosher.
Okay.
Well, I think the motion was to move it to an action item, but it's written as an action item. So are you saying you want to move it into the action item part of the meeting, and we keep them all together? I think we can do this action, we can take action on it here.
I withdraw.
Okay, all right. In this moment, we will definitely review this and make sure that we are adhering to ed code on this. And if anyone has comments about the resolution or just a quick appreciation, we will do that right now. Or I can just appreciate for everybody and say, we so appreciate that we are taking the time to honor February as African American Black History Month, and that our district is giving the time and space for this to be honored. And thank you to Linda Williams for putting this together and reading it for us. It's really wonderful that we have people who put so much time and energy into giving us these facts and details and that we can share them. I encourage everyone to read this resolution with your families and make sure that our students get to read it. That might be something fun that we make sure that they get posted in our school sites. And with that, making sure no one else wants to add anything.
I just want to give great appreciation for Linda Williams for this thoughtful proclamation, really capturing the African-American experience here in America and the wonderful major accomplishment made by African-American in this country, and then having the opportunity for all school districts, especially ours, to pause and recognize that African-American history is American history. And although we give due emphasis during the month of February, but we celebrate it all year long, because without African-American history, you have no American history. And so they're intertwined. And so I thank both Albany and its community for this kind of commitment.
Thank you so much for adding that in there. And now we have a motion and a second, so we will take a vote on approving this recognition. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Seeing no abstentions, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you for that. And we are now going to move on to our approval of the consent calendar. So if anybody has any questions or items that they would like to know more about, go ahead and bring those up now. Yes, Trustee Khan.
Could I pull item 8A, the school accountability report card, for discussion, please? Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to pull from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, we can just make sure there's no public comment on this one. Okay. Seeing none, we can take a motion.
I move we approve the consent calendar, pulling item 8A, school accountability report cards.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing no abstentions, the consent calendar passes with item A pulled, and we will now have a discussion. Trustee Khan, did you have some questions about that?
Yes, so I can't seem to connect to the Wi-Fi. So I actually just, it's okay. Basically, there were certain parts in the report where it talks about like classroom sizes and everything, and it just, to me, it feels extremely confusing to see classroom sizes as big as like 40. I think that
Which school?
on almost all of the schools have like really bizarre classroom sizes, and I just have questions about, sorry, mic's not on, but I just have questions about why do our class sizes look so bizarre? Because there's some as high as, I think it was 40-something in the elementary schools. So that's just concern. Like, I know we're, averaging it out, but I would just like more clarification on that, especially considering I think most of our school sites have about 3 classes per grade level anyway, so I'm wondering if it's better to just have that data as, individual class points instead of like a average that I don't think accurately reflects what the classroom sizes look like.
It's on page 17 of 20, or page 27 of the entire agenda.
Well, that's
That's just one school.
yeah, that's just one, but I know there's others where it looked really odd.
That sounds odd. As you know, we have contractual agreements with our teachers in terms of class size. And for example, at elementary, you talk about K to 3, it's 24-1, and we don't have classes with more than 24-1 in that grade span. Executive Deb Brill is here to respond to that one.
I could just add one additional comment. Hello, everyone. The program that schools now use to import SARCs is that we work with document tracking services, and it's all of them have really moved to this very standardized form of the way that data is imported and collected. And so there's not a lot of flexibility in formatting and how we show which pieces we want to show and how we want to show it. It's all very formatted, and document tracking services does a lot of importing of data from CalPads and other sources. And so that was just one comment I wanted to make, is that this isn't like self-designed, this is how we choose to show the data, this is what is provided for us. In terms of the class size, like Dr. Wells mentioned, we are always compliant to what our contract sizes are within the ATA teacher contract. I am looking at page 17 and I'm seeing class size. I'm not sure that I'm positive what exactly you're referring to, but I do know that in terms of the class sizes, that they all are within the confines of the teacher contract.
See, I don't have the Wi-Fi, so I can't pull it up, but thank you so much for that, because there are just like certain numbers, like we found one where it says 38 is the average, like,
28.
no, 38.
38
It's-
and Ocean View,
Yeah,
grade 1.
Page 66, Ocean View, grade 1, it's listed as average class size 38.
Page 66?
Yes, 66.
Or 17 of 20.
17, okay,
Oh,
that's,
sorry.
On Ocean
that's
View.
okay. Yeah, I was like,
It's two sets of numbers.
And then if you look at page 18 as well, that one has, again, grade 1 at Ocean View listed as 42 as a average class size.
okay.
So those kind of numbers just felt a little strange. And then I think it might have been the high school, but the number of classes listed, like the amount of classes we offer, like those numbers looked kind of strange too. So it just, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, those are all numbers that are imported by TDS. I'm happy to, look into those because we certainly don't have a first grade class with 42 students in it. So I'm not sure exactly how, when they're looking at average class size, how that kind of got pulled or came about. It isn't, they do directly import those pieces. So let me check in with them and respond.
So we pull a lot of this data from the state, don't we? And so they send us, so the error probably is not on our side. I've seen that happen before.
Right.
And so here's what we can do. We can provide an update and clarification on the Friday, in the Friday update so that everybody would have it.
Yes.
Because that is clearly an error. So thank you for that.
I'll reach out to DTS and put the update in the Friday update.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
No, it looked really strange.
Hey, that's a fair question. Thank you.
All right, another question, Trustee Rosenbaum?
Another question, sorry. I warned you. So on page, this is in every one of them, but I'm looking at Cornell, just an example. On page 5 of 20, just the number of things that they list as misassignments. And, these are things that I've dealt with in the past, but I think the public and maybe the board would like explanations of how we have, for example, on class assignments, no credential, permit, or authorization to teach a percentage of all the classes taught by the teachers with no record, 16.6. So those kind of numbers make people jump out, and so maybe you could give us an explanation of why that is.
And at Cornell is the elementary school that is below the state average in that arena. Both Ocean View and Marin exceed that 90+%. And so there were some special circumstances and needs that went on there that HR can provide an update on that, maybe in the Friday update in more detail. Did you want to give a little bit here, but we can also give great details in the Friday update?
Yeah, we see those kind of data a lot of times. This looks a little more, but we know through COVID and everything, things got wacky, but I want to make sure people understand this so they don't look at it and say, we're putting unqualified teachers into a classroom. And I just wanted to make that point, and I let Deborah know I was going to ask that. So,
yeah, what happens is, for example, with those reports, all of our teachers are credentialed, and so, for example, if a teacher has an elementary credential and they don't have elementary special ed credential, it's placed as a misassignment, but they are fully credentialed. And so that's what we have happening in the case that you just pointed out. But all of our teachers have some kind of credential.
Yeah, the state makes us use this format to print things out, and then, people see, oh my God, what's this about?
And I give you
make sure that the community is really clear that we have highly qualified teachers in all our classrooms.
You're right, and I'll give you one more example. At the high school, we have a teacher who's amazing, who's been with us for almost 30 years, with probably about 5 different credentials. And so, Anne has the most experience teaching, for example, a class called Art History, and she has traveled the world in that arena. And because she doesn't have a credential in art history, she's considered unqualified, and she's one of the most qualified in the state of California in the area of art history.
And I want to make a point about that because that decision was made by me.
Okay, good decision.
I know.
Can I just ask, you mentioned that, since we're talking about Cornell, this was a site that was below the state average. Can you just clarify what that means a little bit more?
Well, in the SARC reports, they have your percentage, and then they have the state average, and that's where, for example, the state average might have been 86, and we may have been at 82% in terms of qualified teachers in a particular subject.
Yep, Trustee Khan.
I was just going to say for the high school, it's on page 18 as well, where it has, we apparently have 16 classes, English classes for 1 to 22 students, and then 37 classes with 23 to 32 students. So I don't think we have 40 plus English classes. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We do? Okay. Okay. 40. Still doesn't work.
I don't see it.
Like we have like, for example, 10 sections of ninth graders and 10 sections of, of 10th graders and so forth. And then sometimes there's a particular class, like maybe instead of it just English, it's a sheltered English class or a special education English class or those types of things as well.
Okay, because it just, it looked honest like a pain.
And sometimes you have to make decisions based on what's good for kids and maybe step a little bit over the line, as in the case that you mentioned.
Do we have any other questions up here? All right, we're going to take a motion on item 8A.
I move that we approve item 8A, school accountability report cards, elementary and secondary, with proviso that we'll get an update on some of the questions that you heard.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Seeing no, all abstained? No, or sorry, all opposed? Seeing no opposition, it passes unanimously. And now we get to have our student board member reports.
We're going.
Great, so we have a short report tonight. For the SAC, we are planning to go to Ocean View Elementary, which is our last elementary school that we will be visiting this year. That is going to take place Thursday, February 2nd, and Friday, February 3rd. And after we finish that, we're going to finalize our student-centered presentation, which is scheduled for late February. So be on the lookout for that. Do you want to take?
Yeah. The Joseph and Dorothy Villa Scholarship application is available for pickup in the counseling office, and they're due April 14th, and the interviews for it will take place in May. And the scholarships range from $500 to $2,500, and they're for students who have overcome some sort of hardship to achieve their goals. And there's also the Korean American Community Foundation of SF. They're providing scholarships for Korean American students planning to enroll full-time at a 4-year public college or university in California for 2023 and 2024. The scholarship includes an annual award of $2,500 and mentorship support. The deadline is March 24th, 2023. And do you want to?
Yeah. Ocean View on February 15th has the 5th grade winter choir concert. The 100th day of school is January 26th. And Ocean View Tour for Parents is happening on Tuesday, January 31st from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
And then last week, the Student Achievement Committee met on Thursday, and we worked out logistics and next steps for the listening campaign.
And that'll be all for our report. Thank you.
Very efficient. I just want to remind everybody that we moved the superintendent and other board member reports to the end of the meeting, so we still plan to do them, but we thought that we should move through these other things first. But our student board member reports are very important, and we want to have them remain at the beginning of the meeting. We are now going to take public comment on items not on the agenda. So if you'd like to speak here, please move up to the podium and make sure that you've turned in, I think, one of those little cards. And if you are in our virtual audience, please raise your hand. All right. I'm going to do, I think it's okay. You want to just go first? We'll write it down. All right. We're going to do the in-person comment first, and then we'll do our virtual comment after that.
Hello, my name is Nick Medeiros. Trustees and members of the public. Our state's effort to address chronically poor ventilation in our classrooms continues statewide. In recent years, hundreds of millions of dollars have funded hundreds of thousands of state-compliant CO2 monitors inside classrooms in over 4,000 schools throughout California. This public CO2 data has uncovered many issues which are being addressed, such as unventilated classrooms with over 5,000 parts per million CO2, newly constructed classrooms with over 20 times the OSHA VOC limits and carbon monoxide exhaust gases being pulled into classrooms from combustion sources. Facilities directors and the occupants of classrooms are learning how to ensure a healthy indoor environment by displaying CO2 inside every classroom. CO2 alerting inside classrooms helps reduce absenteeism and decreases risk of lethargy, fatigue, physical and mental decline, and disease. Ventilation issues have been well known for decades to our building science community. Sick buildings and sick people result when the function of the ventilation systems is not viewable through public CO2 monitoring. For years, our atmospheric chemistry researchers at UC Berkeley, UC Davis, and a few Albany students have been aware of Albany classrooms which show elevated CO2 levels. This has been the case since before the pandemic. The new classrooms at Ocean View, which we paid over $1,000 per square foot for, are not high performing. Ocean View classrooms have not been tested to meet minimum ventilation code requirements. CHIPS ventilation points were not awarded to Ocean View, and the basic ventilation commissioning tests were not performed at Ocean View. I'm disappointed that the indoor air quality agenda item was not put on the agenda as board member Khan requested at the last board meeting. The downsides of failure to apply for round one of the $700 million of AB 841 funding are many. Round one is used to identify schools which need better ventilation for funding under round two, which subsequently pays for new ventilation systems. This is the start of a funded program for fixing our $7 billion ventilation program within schools here in California. Our Albany schools need this state assistance. The occupants of each classroom require display of CO2 levels so that they may choose to put on an N95 mask when CO2 levels are above 1,000 parts per million.
Thank you so much for your comment. We'll now move on to Jeremiah Pinguelo. Jeremiah, I think you muted yourself. Oh, there you go.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back from a little short break. Yeah, so I got a couple things I just want to mention, I guess. One is possibly increasing the teachers' salary, especially for teachers who have certifications and college degrees. I was reviewing the teacher salary earlier today, and I think it starts out at $60,000 per year. And then it goes up, I think, $2,000 or something like that every level. I think some teachers start out as level 6. If you have 3 or more years experience or something like that. But I was just wondering if teachers have, degrees like, a PhD or a lot more degrees. I was wondering if possible, you guys can improve the teacher salary. That way teachers actually make, $100,000 a year. Because I just don't think a lot of times, 70,000 is enough. I think teachers do work a lot more than during the week. I think they work on the weekends doing lesson plans and things like that. So I just wanted to give a shout out for that. Also, I got 20 seconds left. Okay, I'll focus on one thing then. Possibly the consideration of being CPR first aid AED certified by the Red Cross. That way they're all able to respond to a situation.
Thank you so much for that. We'll now move on to Annie J. Fishberg.
Hi, thank you so much. Annie J. Fishberg, I'm the math department chair at the high school. I just wanted to do a quick shout out. Thank you to you, the board, for approving item 8H, the contract with CPM. I don't know if anybody knows the details, but that contract is going to allow the high school math teachers, the middle school math teachers, and all the secondary special ed math teachers to meet together to do professional development talking about math equity within our math curriculum. I'm really excited about it. I want to do a thank you to Dr. Wells for his support of this financially and the manpower to make it happen. And I know the high school math teachers and the middle school math teachers are really excited and passionate for this opportunity for collaboration. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further public comment on matters not on the agenda, we are going to move on to our review and discussion item, our ethnic studies proposal. I'll hand this introduction over to you, Dr. Wells.
Can I make a point of order? Because I'd like to ask that we move this to 8 o'clock, because there are some more people who I don't know, that I know some people who want to come and be here for that discussion. So can we bypass that and come back to it at 8 o'clock?
I guess we can, but I do want to make a point that, and I'm a big advocate for students and staff, because we have staff here waiting for that, and it's going to be presenting, and they need to be at school the next day at 7:15 in the morning. I would not want to wait too late, but I am in favor of adhering to the schedule.
I know there are more staff that might be coming, so there are staff here that might know of somebody, because I do. I'd rather move ahead myself, but I want to make sure that people have an opportunity to be on time, and if they're not, we should just move ahead.
And the other thing is, because this is 45 minutes, if we were 10 minutes ahead, for example, they'll be here in enough time to make comments regarding this item. It's an item we've been working on for the last couple of years, so those who are coming to speak to this are very astute to where we are from start to finish. So I think it'd be safe to move forward, and then that way we can get our staff out of here before 9 o'clock.
I'm going to say for tonight that we're close enough to 8 o'clock. I think we can get started on this one. And if we need to make sure we get public comment from anyone who's not here, definitely they can also send us emails about it. We do read our emails. So I am going to say that we get this item started. Dr. Wells, would you like to introduce it?
Yes, this is a long...
I think I made a motion to table this, so I think that has to be voted on. It's in our handbook, so...
Okay, we'll see if there's a second.
Finish my statement then. I think that it doesn't make a difference when we time it, as long as we move to the next item and then come back to this. So it's not going to make a difference mathematically. I taught math for 20 years.
Okay, so we're going to look for a second. Is there a second on the motion to table item 11A? Okay, seeing no second, we're going to move forward on 11A for right now, and we will introduce it and make sure that we hear from everybody who's here who has input on this item.
As you know, ethnic studies, as we know it, is a hot potato around the state.
That was...
Trustee Rosenbaum, stop. We followed the protocol.
No, we did not. The
Yes.
protocol is that if it's a motion to table, there have to be votes of majority.
There was no second on it.
No, it's not a motion. You have to have 3 members of the board to say that they don't want to table this issue. If you look at your handbook, it's there.
Okay, are there any other members of the board who would like to continue on with this or to table this issue? Okay, I've made my point. I've made my point that I would as well.
I withdraw.
Well, we still need one more to make sure that we're in line with what you...
I'd like to continue on with the item.
Okay, thank you. It's a really good thing we're having a board handbook thorough training so we make sure that we all know all of these as well. Okay, we will return.
Great. Tonight, as you know, the topic is a hot potato topic in the state and across the nation regarding ethnic studies in our middle or high schools. There's no difference here in Albany, except we've been ahead of the game here. We have in our presence Michelle Lysheim, who years ago created the ethnic study curriculum and department at the high school, and so we've been addressing ethnic studies in our some of our core classes. And now we're trying to adhere to the state requirement before we were required to do this, led by our principal, Darren McNally, who spent the last 2+ years leading his staff and a group of diverse folks around a lot of grappling of how do you do this. And he's going to spend a moment or two talking about this in great detail. And so instead of me going into depth, I'm going to turn it over to you, Principal McNally, to pick it up from here.
Great, thank you very much. So we're actually going to start off with a presentation led by Yvette Polito, who is our current ethnic studies teacher. Ms. Polito has a master's degree in ethnic studies from UC Berkeley and has been teaching the ethnic studies course at Albany High since Michelle Lausign became an administrator with us. So she's going to walk us through what ethnic studies is, more information about the program, and then Ms. Lau and I will take over from there talking about the process that brought us here with the board and our proposal for how to adopt an ethnic studies graduation requirement. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Polito.
It's all there?
It should be.
All right. Hi, I'm Yvette Pulido, and I teach the year-long elective, the Ethnic Studies course. And what Ethnic Studies is, it's a multidisciplinary course. So when I took it, when I got my master's, one of the things I loved about it is that it's not just history or social science. It straddles all these different disciplines. So it involves literature. We had a whole class that was just looking at different cultures. It's really dynamic. But its main purpose is to provide a voice to those who have been marginalized, who have been excluded from the dominant narrative. And at the high school, it is created in order to introduce students to the concept of race as a social construct, but one which nevertheless has very real consequences for our lives because it affects our access to opportunity, it affects the power structure in our nation. So we look at how race is a social construct and how concepts of race have shifted over time because at one point the Irish people weren't considered to be white. So we look at the creation of race and how it's malleable, but there's, if you trace its history all the way back to colonialism and you look at how it has transformed, even though it's a social construct, we're social creatures and we live in a society. So it has very real consequences. So we look at the power structures as well. There's this misconception that it's all about identity politics and kind of like an Olympics of suffering, and that is not what it is at all. It's a discipline. It's an academic discipline that talks about power and about access to power. It does look at history a lot, and because of the way that the history of the course itself, we look at 4 particular groups, the groups that fought here in the Bay Area in the late 1960s to get the class created. We look at African Americans, we look at Latinos, we look at Asian Americans, and we look at Native Americans. And just the history of it is really interesting, and I'm proud that it's a Bay Area history, that it was students here in the Bay Area who engaged in the longest at the time student strike, 5 months, and they refused to go back until they had an ethnic studies program. And they got it, but it was hard, They threatened to arrest them. Some of them did get arrested, but eventually it took off. And now we're at this point where the state of California is saying high school students need this. And the evidence, they've done studies, the evidence is that it benefits students of all colors. It benefits them in weird things, like science and math. It increases student attendance and student graduation. So it has all these wonderful, wonderful effects. I have other slides that show you the charts and stuff. So the purpose of the class is to give a voice to our increasingly diverse student population and for them to understand the history and the structures of power that influence what kind of a history we learn. I didn't have access to this until I was in college, which is really sad. But it's a great thing that the state of California has decided this is necessary, this is empowering, this is not divisive. I have another slide where you'll see how many states are trying to pass laws to get rid of this. Just last week, Florida said no to the AP, Advanced Placement African American Studies course, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I'm hoping that maybe in the future I'll be back and I'll be proposing an AP African American Studies course, because I think that would be awesome. But the ethnic studies programs, the ethnic studies curriculum, the original one started at SF State. That was, again, the 5-month strike. It was a pan-ethnic coalition, the Third World Liberation Front, and they succeeded. There were also strikes at UC Berkeley. They happened again in the 90s when they tried to defund the program, but we're still there. They're still there. And they succeeded in the creation. So now to my not propaganda, because it's not propaganda. I'm trying to fight the propaganda, but at least 15 states are trying to ban schools from teaching what they call critical race theory. It's really ethnic studies. You don't learn critical race theory until you go to college. And just last week, Ron DeSantis was trying to ban the AP African American Studies course from being taught. Right now, it's only being piloted in 60 schools, and there's no evidence. He claims that it's not academically rigorous. There's no evidence to that because everything has to go through the College Board in any of the AP classes. So it's just hatred, right? Information is power, and they want to limit what people have access to. We can skip the video. I had a video of an ethnic studies course, but I just want to reiterate that it's not a divisive class, that there's no blaming people. We look at the structures themselves, the structures of power, and it's a lot like U.S. history, right? Who has had power, how has power been used and abused, and how can we make the ideals that bolster America, life and liberty and progress for all, how can we make those a reality? So by examining our multiple stories, it strengthens us and brings us closer to the ideal. And now the positive outcomes that studies have found. So one of the earliest studies was at Stanford, and they assigned 9th graders who had been struggling to an ethnic studies course, and they saw these significant, they were one of the earliest ones. They followed them for 10 years, and for 10 years they found the same sort of trends. So attendance jumped significantly by 21 points, the grade point average went up by 1.4 points. Students who took the ethnic studies courses tended to earn more credits towards graduation. They were more likely to enroll in college within 6 years. I have a little chart, fancy chart coming up. And it improved all of the students, most of the students, I think. The biggest gains were amongst boys and amongst Hispanic or Latino students in the subject of math and science, which is just really weird, right? So representation matters. Seeing yourself and your story being told and feeling like you're a part of the community, a part of the nation, it has a positive impact. There's a little chart with the benefits of ethnic studies. I've got more charts. This is one of it's more of the same, right? Other studies, including, there's a great book by Christine Sleater that looks at different studies from all over the nation, and she wrote a great book about it, that if enrollment in ethnic studies tends to lead to less truancy, improvements in attendance, students feel like they belong, like they're a part of the community. They improve in terms of their communication skills, critical thinking, problem solving, things that they're going to need if they decide to go to college or enter the workforce. It increases standardized test scores, increases graduation and college enrollment rates. It basically prepares them to do well in the world. And the next one is an overview of the one-year ethnic studies elective that I teach. And then I have a proposed, I think I have, the next one is the proposed, more of the benefits, sorry. I had to go back to the, can you go back one? Sorry. Sorry, one forward, yeah. That one, no, sorry, the next one. One more forward, I think. That's the course that I teach. There, yeah. So more of the benefits of ethnic studies, just that it tends to have a really positive impact. And the Stanford university study was the first one, but I found other ones, right? If you enroll students at this, and it seems like timing when you do it is crucial. I think their brains are still malleable by grade 9, so if you teach them early on, they get the information that they need before their ideas are ossified, you know? And then I have a proposed one semester course and what it would look like, and you can see that you can cover a lot in one semester. So I did the curriculum map for the 1 year, which is one I teach, and then what a proposed one semester one would look like. And there's one more, and then I was wondering if you guys had any questions. Okay, fine, yeah.
Do you want to do the whole thing, or do you want to do it broken up? That's up to you guys.
I think it would work best if we just did the whole thing and then just kind of
Great.
did all questions together at the end. And I can defer to Ms. Polito and Ms. Lausaim as needed. Jackie, could you pull up the comparison document? So while Jackie's bringing that up, so our process, originally the board asked the Instructional Improvement Council at Albany High School to start looking at the question of how to adopt an ethnic studies graduation requirement, originally in the spring of 2020. The IIC at Albany High School is composed of faculty members, a counselor, parents, students, and it's usually chaired by the principal. That really is a shared governance structure for looking at changes to courses and curriculum. The IIC formed a subcommittee that was led by Ms. Lausaim that really started to dig into what the possibilities could be for ethnic studies and options around ethnic studies. That group did come away with really a focus on a 1-year course. The IIC took that recommendation then and started to look at how that would fit into the overall program of Albany High School and how that would impact students and other aspects of our program. And the IIC further distilled that down to 2 possibilities. Model A would be a year-long course, and that the advantage of a year-long course, of course, is it covers more topics, allows a deeper exploration of materials. It would need to be taken sophomore year because of the number of required courses that freshmen have. All sophomores would be required to take the class. It would be required enrollment, like most of our other social studies courses and things like PE and a few other subjects. The teachers for the course would be ethnic studies teachers, so with similar levels of training as Ms. Polito. Well, maybe not quite as much as Ms. Polito, but they'd be social studies teachers who are versed in the ethnic studies curriculum. If you could move down a little bit, thank you. So there would likely with this model be impact on other classes. This would be adding 11 sections of a class that we do not currently offer to our schedule. The most likely impacts of that would be needing to move social studies teachers away from other social studies elective courses so that we can free up the personnel to actually teach the course. This could then also possibly have some impacts on what will be available as far as electives. Another student population that could potentially be impacted is among our freshmen, they all take generally English, world history, a math class, a science class, and if they are looking to be UC eligible, a world language class, and then also for 2/3 of them because of state requirements, PE. So that's 6 classes right there. Students who are in intervention courses or support courses, for example, special education students in support labs, students in our homework lab, students in our AVID program, students in our math intervention program, would have really constrained options as far as trying to maintain UC eligibility and take all of the required courses that would come with the additional academic class. And that's assuming students take 7 classes sophomore year, which 25% of our sophomores choose not to because of reasons they may have for reducing their load. The other model that was looked at to try to create a little bit more balance between some of the options, could you scroll back to the top, please? Was Model B. So Model B is to create a semester course that would take place during freshman year. There's obviously a trade-off here in that it's a shorter course. The advantage, though, to Model B is that it does expose all freshmen to this content. So this becomes a foundational social studies course, it becomes a foundational lens that students can use throughout the rest of their high school career. This would be required enrollment for all freshmen. And the way that this would work is that all freshmen are required to take this course by the end of their freshman year. Half of the students would be in ethnic studies, while the other half are in health, and then they would switch midway through the year. Another model that's similar, if you're familiar, is the wheel at the middle school, how students rotate every quarter. What this means is that the health course would be taught by health credentialed teachers, our current IHS teachers, and the ethnic studies course would be taught by ethnic studies credentialed teachers. It would not be the same teachers for the two courses. They'd also be paired, so it would not create impacts on other aspects of student scheduling. And the other impact that this would have is it would shorten up the IHS course, the Identity, Health, and Society course, which is our year-long freshman social studies course. That course does meet the California state health standards, but we have in Albany really expanded that course to cover a lot more content. And so some of that content would need to be relocated to ethnic studies, some of the things about personal identity, while some other content, unfortunately, would probably have to be removed to make sure that we could adequately cover the other subjects well, which could also then have some impacts on some cross-curricular opportunities for freshmen as well. After considering these models and getting quite a bit of stakeholder input over about the last year, the IIC voted to recommend to the board option B at our last meeting. But we are presenting both models because we felt it was important to honor the work of the subcommittee and then also to just make the process transparent for the board. And we're happy to answer any questions related to those. Ms. Lau, do you have anything to add? All right. And I think that actually brings us to the end of what we were prepared for presentation purposes.
That was very succinct. That was great. Well, that's because we're going to discuss a lot, apparently. So we are going to take questions. I just want to, I'm like, I'll wait. I just want to let you know, one of my most memorable classes at Berkeley High was my ethnic studies taken freshman year. And so I feel like, I have a strong connection to that, and hearing you kind of talk about what you're covering, I was going back to all these memories from, so thank you for this presentation. We'll now take questions from the board. I'm going to defer. Your hand was up first. Okay. All right. Student board member Dana.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily a question, just a comment or an addition. We, meaning Unelli and I, actually did talk to Julia and Skaya, who are the student representatives to the IIC, and they sent us a quote that they'd like us to read, given that they couldn't attend.
Can you, instead of using the acronym, can you let us know what they're the student?
The Instructional Improvement Committee, Council?
Council, yes.
Council, yeah.
So they're the student advisors.
Student advisors to that council that was reviewing this and had the subcommittee around ethnic studies. So this is their quote. Here you go. We'd like you to know that 72% of students preferred the one-semester freshman year model. The most notable concerns for the sophomore year model was that it would limit electives. This would play into college applications and make it harder to try new things. On the other hand, though only 30% of students marked a preference for the other option meaning the sophomore year option, many were concerned that the freshman year model, having less time to go in depth, would hurt students of color. The racist 2017 incident was cited as a reason why having more time could be crucial in improving the school environment for BIPOC students.
Thank you so much for bringing that into the meeting. Student board member Garcia Bustamante.
Yeah, I had a question. Would it still be possible if, say, the one semester model is passed, would it still be possible for a student to select a year-long ethnic studies course, like as a senior or a junior? Yes? Okay, great.
Yeah, the ethnic studies elective, which we currently offer, we would continue to offer, and that would not be impacted. I think it would, of course, be reworked, knowing that students have this foundational knowledge, and we may call it advanced ethnic studies or find ways to maybe even try to move into an honors paradigm or something like that, depending on what we decide to do with the course. But yes, that would still be preserved under the semester model as an elective option for students.
Well,
all right, Trustee Rosenbaum.
So number one, I'm really glad to see this. And I'm glad you mentioned ethnic studies at Berkeley High School because I was one of the people that implemented that In my years at Berkeley High School, I wrote basically alone. I wrote for many years the master schedule, so I understand the problem, and all my years at Albany High and Oakland Tech and all those things. I understand, and I really appreciate the IIC's effort at looking at what the ramifications would be, specifically for a one-year course. So I'm very impressed by the way this was handled, and I think it's absolutely outstanding that we're going to be moving ahead. Berkeley High, I think, was the first Bay Area high school that implemented ethnic studies, and there was a similar struggle around that. So one question, if we are taking the IHS course and cutting basically the number of semesters in half, do we have ideas of how we would place the teachers that would no longer be teaching IHS?
We currently have one primarily IHS teacher who is on a temporary contract for this year. So we don't anticipate the longer-term staffing input. I mean, scheduling, of course, is always one of those things where we have to kind of wait and see what the numbers actually look like, but we don't anticipate long-term staffing changes that we would meet the need for the two other IHS teachers will be more than capable of meeting the need, and they also teach other classes within our school in our social studies program as well. So again, as the sections we're looking at, there would be about 5 or 6 sections. Those teachers would be teaching other things, which they already do.
Yeah.
We only have one kind of dedicated IHS teacher, and that person's on a temporary contract through the end of this school year.
I think people need to understand how difficult it is to put all the pieces together for a master schedule and get things so that one thing that I always believe in is every child should have a class every period, so they won't have wanderers and having to chase them. And it's really hard. IIC was a big struggle to put that in. It took a whole year, and hiring Shelley Ball, which I did, and developed to not only start the mental health program, but to create the IHS, because we didn't have a health program at all, and it's state mandated. Superintendent at the time said, "What are you going to do about this?" IHS was a great answer, but I think combining the two together, it's just going to make everything stronger. So I'm gushing. I'm done.
Yeah, Trustee Khan.
I first of all just wanted to say thank you for all the time and effort that you guys have put into this. I wish this existed when I was in high school, but I'm glad that our students will have access to this. I also took ethnic study courses at UC Berkeley, and they were some of the best courses I took. Almost made me change my major, but I didn't. But I will say I do have a slight concern about the Asian American history, only because we're talking about model minority myth and stereotyping and identity, but then we're only discussing Chinese American and Japanese American, and the Asian American community is much bigger than that. And so,
Pacific Islanders, yeah, we'll bring in other groups.
okay, that was just like,
Yeah.
okay, because,
Like a brief, outline, yeah.
okay, yeah, that would definitely be awesome to see, more in depth, because it worries me, because oftentimes, to this day, I'll just share, growing up, the one comment I got the most was, "Oh, you're lying about being Asian because your eyes don't look like that." And I'm like, the hell does that mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, everyone's Mexican, and it's like, no, Latinos are diverse.
Right, so that was a little concern for me, so I'm glad that you guys are considering that. Thank you.
One more question.
Yeah. Oh, are you okay to jump over here?
Michelle, no,
Yeah?
I want to hear from Michelle.
Right.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Laus. I'm currently the assistant principal of Albany High School, but I actually started teaching in 2003 at the high school. And so just one thing I just wanted to note about the work that the History Social Science Department has worked over the years. My 20th year here now, and just seeing the shift and the change. I really want to acknowledge the work that the department has done, because not just fostering and embracing ethnic studies as an elective at the high school, they've also worked to integrate ethnic study themes into the core curriculum. So, including identity, and not just having time for students to reflect on themselves, but reflect on other people's identity. talking about local and community history, looking at systems of racism through our government and economic systems, looking at marginalized groups and highlighting their histories and perspective. They've worked a long time to make this change, and so I just want to acknowledge that this department has worked a long time to really shift from, the history that we've had, 20 plus years ago in high school. And so I just wanted to also acknowledge that. And that is also something the department will continue to do, regardless of what happens with ethnic studies. They still find that important. Thanks, sorry.
Thank you so much for that. All right, Trustee.
Thanks, Michelle. And
Trustee Rosenbaum, do you have another question?
just one question. Is there a plan to immediately apply for A through G recognition from the University of California? It's in the new.
Yes, it would. We would. Ms. Lau, could you speak to this? Actually, I know you know more about this than I do.
Yes. So currently, even the elective is A through G approved, and so the ethnic studies required course will be also A through G.
Because I know the state is pushing for us to do that.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, Trustee Hopwood.
Just want to say thanks to all of you for all of the work that you've put into this. The curriculum looks fantastic. I'm so impressed. My kids all went through the high school, they all had IHS with Miss Horowitz and loved it. I wish that this had existed when 3 of them were there. It was amazing. So it's an exciting development. So thank you.
Yes, Vice President Boyd.
Thank you. So comment first. I just can't say strongly enough how wonderful it is that this program exists, that all the work has gone into it. I agree that I wish this had existed when I was studying, and I really appreciate the scope of your presentation and the passion with which you speak about this topic. It's really wonderful to hear. But the scope and to reference the studies and to understand all the different ways that learning about this material supports our students, helps to further their goals in ways we would expect and not expect. So I'm just really excited about it. And I also appreciate Assistant Principal Lau Syme's point that you made as well about the fact that these themes are also throughout and in the core curriculum as well, which is one of the things that makes me feel comfortable with more comfortable with the one semester approach as opposed to a full year approach. I, of course, think these topics are extremely important, and if all things could happen, I think it'd be wonderful to spend a year focusing on these items, but I think it's incredibly important to have access to electives, and I know in the materials it was mentioned students receiving certain interventions might have difficulty as well, and so I definitely, while recognizing the importance of this subject matter, understand that we need to weigh all of the different concerns, and so I think it's just wonderful and really exciting. One quick question I had was with Principal McNally. I know that you mentioned, and it's in the materials as well, that some of the IHS items would need to be moved into the one semester ethnic studies, like around identity, et cetera, to make sure that everything that we're able to cover in the current IHS curriculum is still covered. And I just wanted to confirm that you don't see any issues with that, considering there's already a lot of material that's being, kind of compressed into the one semester ethnic studies. So just wanted to ask quickly about that.
I don't foresee significant issues with it. I think we have really skilled, experienced IHS teachers. We have really skilled, experienced ethnic studies teachers. In addition to Ms. Polito, we actually have another teacher on staff who has experience teaching ethnic studies. One of we talked about Berkeley High, and Berkeley High, of course, was the pioneer of this in the Bay Area. One of the biggest challenges Berkeley had in getting ethnic studies started was access to qualified staff off the bat to teach the course well. Albany already has that, and we don't even have the requirement yet. And I'm confident that our IHS teachers and our ethnic studies teachers, because they're all within the social studies department, will be able to figure out the best alignment of the course content. And we really lean on our teachers to do that kind of work, and they have my full confidence that they'll be able to do that well.
Thank you for that. And also just one quick thing that I forgot to say is I just feel really grateful to be in this district where this is the type of conversation we're having and not trying to explain to people why this is actually important. I mean, I appreciate that you explained to us why it was important in case people didn't know, but I love that we don't have to have that discussion here. I'm not suggesting that AUSD is perfect, but I very much appreciate that this is the level of conversation we have about this subject matter.
Okay, thank you all so much for that. So this is our chance to discuss this because the next time we see this, it'll be brought forward as an action item, and we will be voting in the proposal from the staff, which is that we, I'm assuming this is that we select option B, which is the 1 semester course. So if anyone has any other questions on that from the board, this is the time to get them in. Okay, seeing that we're all good up here, we're going to take public comment on this item. So if you have a public comment, you can go step up to the podium or raise your hand in the virtual audience, and we will take those now.
Hi, this is Nicholas Medeiros again, and just a really quick comment on this. I really appreciate the presentation about Black History Month and the development of this program, but I would encourage a review of Dewey Decimal Section 490, which is foreign language books in the library. I think it's important that if a student goes to the library while taking their ethnic studies course, that they're able to find books in the language that's being presented, particularly if they're native speakers and students who speak second language. So I notice it's a vanishingly small section in our libraries that could really deserve attention. And along with that, making sure the libraries are in fact open and staffed after school for students to have a place to go to continue their studies. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really good perspective to have. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing no public comment here and no hands raised in the virtual audience, we will look forward to seeing this come back as an action item. All right, moving through, we get to do tonight's action items. Our first action item is resolution number 2022-2318, tie-breaking criteria.
I won't spend a whole lot of time on this. The tie-breaking criteria was in our board packet, and folks had a chance to review that. And so I will just jump into any questions you may have about that. This is something we do annually, just so folks are cognizant of when there's a tie, the tie-breaking process. And for those who need a refresher, it's up on the big screen. And if you can pull it up a little bit so we can see more of it, that would be great.
All right, do we have any questions on this? Anyone need any other clarification? Yeah, Trustee Khan.
Has the tie-breaking procedure always been this way? Oh.
The short answer is yes.
These ones always seem really confusing when you first see them, and then once Marina kind of explains, okay, these are routine, this is how it works, this is what we do, then you say, oh, okay, sounds good.
You know, it might be helpful because we do have 3 new board members and 1 returning, and it would be a good refresher if you could take a minute or 2 to just to give an overview. I made some assumptions, and my apologies.
Absolutely. So, like it says at the very beginning, this is something that we have to do in accordance with the California Education Code, requires that we bring the tie-breaking criteria each year. And what that means is that in the event that we were to have to do certificated layoffs, then, and let's say we had someone with the same seniority date, then we would use this criteria to figure out what the, how to break the tie. And one thing I feel like I say every year, is that this is in no way meant to imply that we're planning on certificated layoffs. It's just something that we have to do as routine.
All right, if anyone has any further questions, we can take them now. Okay, seeing none from the board, we will now take public comment on this tie-breaking criteria item. Seeing none here or online, we will now take a motion to pass this resolution.
I move that we approve resolution number 2022-23-18, tie-breaking criteria.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes unanimously, and we will now move on to Resolution 2022-23-19, adopting procedures and guidelines for selection of leaseback contractor.
Well, Madam Chair, President Davidson, we thought we were pretty clever and strategic in having our team here told them to come here at 8:30 instead of 8:45, so they'd be here early. And they're not here yet, but they're on the way and committed to be here by 8:30. They are here.
I think they're here virtually and just promoted to panelists.
Thank you.
Need to make it so we can both see this. Okay, you want to pass it?
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Okay, so this item is to review and approve resolution number 2022-23-19, adopting procedures and guidelines for selection of leaseback contractors. So leaseback contract, meaning that this is one of the method in public work project, in addition to using our traditional design build process. So the sealed proposals submitted in the response to the request for proposals must be ranked by their best value scores. And the board must award the project to the contractors to the best value to the districts. So before the district can issue the request for proposals for selection for leaseback contractors, the district's board must adopt procedures and guidelines. And these procedures and guidelines are dictated by Ed Code 17406. And we have Ann Collins, our attorney this evening via Zoom to answer any questions. So let's see. Okay, thank you for promoting. Okay. So yes, any questions?
Oh, okay, so we're ready to take, so the assumption is that we've all read through this item in our packet, and it's posted in the agenda if anybody in the public has questions about it. So right now is our chance to ask questions to the lawyer who put together this proposal for the leaseback. I guess we should, yeah, there we go, clarify just a little bit more what we're leaseback contracting here.
Oh, yes. So the first item will be the Cornell HVAC system. But once we, on the board, adopt this process, we can also use it for the future project when we need to do the lease and leaseback contract.
Okay, so if anybody has any questions about the leaseback contractor process that we are setting up right now and will first be used for the Cornell HVAC, please ask them now. Okay, we look very well read here. No questions from the board, so I think we'll look for public comment or questions. If you have any here, go to the podium.
I don't believe it said in the public notice that this agenda item was in reference to Cornell. Is this on?
He's saying that this item doesn't reference Cornell. I think we're just approving a process right now, and to give more information, CBO Kim was letting us know that it would first be utilized.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. The leaseback process has been used to shorten projects by minimizing DSA review, sometimes eliminating DSA review, and removing a project from the public procurement process, all of which are very important in public projects. I really only have 1 minute left. Before the pandemic, the former facilities director was instructed to install air conditioning system for Cornell without plans and permitting, sidestepping public procurement process. He stated he was told to avoid plans and permits. The report from IMEG engineers' response to the district's attempt to install air conditioning at Cornell without plans and permits states the bulk of the building does not meet code requirements for ventilation. The work requires engineer, design, and complete review by the state architect. We were subsequently told that Cornell did have a to-code ventilation system by the district, and despite being categorized as replacement, the Cornell work is not a replacement system, and replacement categorization means that little or no code check is done by DSA. It's important to recognize the way Cornell is intended to function, and the current plans for Cornell do not include sufficient ventilation for any of the classrooms.
I guess my question to follow up on that would be, are we getting DSA approval still on some of these projects, regardless of the process to get the people to do the work or how we get the system?
I believe that is the case, but we can have our attorney answer the question as well.
I want to be real emphatic that I've been here since the start of the HVAC project and was the initiator there. And I got to tell you, we adhere to the letter of the law when it comes to the replacement, the evaluation, assessment, and all the requirements moving forward. And we have met. And we're ready to install, for example, the HVAC this spring by meeting all of those state requirements and reviews, et cetera, without taking any shortcuts or cutting any corners, because that wouldn't do anyone any good. It would be a hazardous to our students and staff and our community if we did such. And so we take that very seriously and not lightly.
Okay, at this time, are there any other questions? Well, our attorney is here. Okay. Seeing none, we can take a motion.
I move resolution 2022-2319.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, seeing no opposition, the item passes unanimously. Okay, we are now moving on to our board member and superintendent reports. Superintendent Wells.
Thank you, Madam Chair, President Davidson. My report is kind of superintendent light report. It's a kind of heads up on a major report that's forthcoming. We had a chance to attend the governor's annual budget proposal for 23-24 school year. And the future looks very bright and promising for public school districts. We're excited about that. In addition to that, we have legislative funding for extended learning opportunities, which means after-school programs for our most vulnerable kids, meaning our poor kids, our kids with not many opportunities. And so there's now law and legislation that we are required to provide extended after-school for all of our kids, for example, from 3 to 6, we'll be starting in the fall. You could have started this year, but we needed more time of planning. We need to spend more time talking to staff, but it's going to change the way we do business. And the impact is going to be a real impact, and we're anticipating just over $1 million a year and for it to continue to go up. But it's a wonderful opportunity for kids throughout California to have extended learning opportunities after school every day from 3 to 6 and during break times. And so we're going to bring more detailed information. We're also going to be doing a campaign throughout our schools to let them know and have a FAQ ready And then we want to include them in the grappling and the troubleshooting of the how. The what is non-negotiable. The what is we are going to have extended learning for our kids who need it. And those kids who don't need it can still opt to participate, and they're welcome too. That's the beauty. So it's open to all kids, but it was established so that we reach out to our kids who may not have the kind of structure and opportunities and tutoring services that they may need, and enrichment opportunities ranging from learning how to cook to computing to you name it. We can be as creative and innovative as possible. What kind of impact does that have? Some of the obvious impact is we're going to need, for example, classrooms after school. And the good news is when we heard that, we were like, oh my God, we can't be assuming all of our teachers' classrooms. But then we ran the numbers. You take a school, for example, like Cornell, I'm anticipating that we might need 5 classrooms. It's not all 28, it's just 5. And then the principal and a teacher figure out what 5 classrooms that they would decide. And so once we go on this campaign to inform folks of what's coming down the pipe, we start the grappling and talk about the impact. And then we have to be ready to roll this out, not only as a summer, as a trial run, but also in the fall. But we want to do this together. We want to be inclusive, collaborative, and transparent. So the what is crystal clear, the how is not yet. And that's what we're going to be working on. So you have some of that in your Friday update in some detail, and then we're going to have some presentations on that in the immediate future because we now have to really speed it up with getting staff and community on board with these wonderful opportunities for the kids to have places to go after school from the hours of 3 to 6. And actually, it's going to be seamless because some of those kids who get out at, say, 1:45, they too will have an opportunity to go to these after-school programs and extended day and enrichment programs. So just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that.
All right, Vice President Boyd.
Thank you. Just a couple things. So because of the way board meetings work, we won't have one for a little bit. And so I'll just point out now that on Wednesday, February 15th is the district's Black History Month celebration. It's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. At the high school. We're going to have a lot of student performers, and we're going to have wonderful food. It's always a great event, well-attended, and inspirational and fun community event. So hoping that folks will put it in their calendar and attend if they can. Again, that's Wednesday, February 15th. And then I'll just quickly say that as Board Member Garcia Bustamante referenced about the Student Achievement Committee, I was attending that meeting as well, and we spent a lot of time talking about the listening campaign and the methods of outreach to people in the community, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to hear directly from members of the community how we can do an even better job in serving our students, particularly students who have had challenges performing in various classes, and to the extent folks are listening, really encourage families and caregivers of students who have had challenges in their classes to participate in one of those sessions and to share what would be helpful for them. You know, if tutoring programs that are provided are not beneficial for whatever reason, the time of day or, you know, difficulty with teachers providing the services or whatever it is, like, you know, personality kind of mismatches or what have you, you know, we want to try to do the very best that we can to support our students and to make sure that communication is going the right way and that all of the really great intentions that are being put out there by our teachers and our staff are being fully utilized. And so I'm looking forward to that. And then last thing, excuse me, last thing is just attending the Special Education Committee meeting, which is always a wonderful opportunity for members of the community who are extremely engaged, very knowledgeable about what their own particular children and many other students who are getting, students with disabilities need in our district. And one of the subjects we talked about was transitions and the difficulty in moving from elementary to middle school and middle school to high school, and some great suggestions from there about teachers being able to collaborate across those different school sites and, really discuss what they've seen at the current level for students who are incoming to the middle school or to the high school, to try to not lose that knowledge, and also even students who are older who have been through those transitions, perhaps being able to speak to students who are about to make those transitions from elementary to middle or from middle to high school, to talk about some of the potential pitfalls and things that help them to ease through those transitions. So that was a wonderful meeting as well, and always just a very engaged, committed community. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Rosenbaum?
I don't have much to say. I'm going to be meeting with Principal Fold tomorrow to get caught up on what's going on in Marin. And so I'm looking forward to hearing her take and what we can do for the Marin as a school board.
Thank you. Trustee Khan?
Melissa stole my report, so I'm kidding.
I stole your report?
We have to coordinate next time.
I know. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for the wonderful recap. I'll just say real quick, the APA Parent Engagement Group, I know I shared this already, but the event's coming up on February 5th, 4 to 6 p.m. at Ocean View Multipurpose Room, so we'd love to have folks join us for the New Year potluck and some fun games. That's it.
Can you give the time on that one again? February 5th?
4 to 6. It's a Sunday, I believe. 4 to 6, yeah.
Thank you. Trustee Hopwood?
Right, I have a couple of things. First thing is that the high school's first PTSA meeting of the year is on Monday, February 13th, from 7 till 8:30 via Zoom. You can find the link to that under the committees tab on the high school website. That was number one. Second thing, as student board member Bruce Conte and Trustee Boyd already mentioned, the Student Achievement Committee, that's getting a lot of airtime tonight, obviously, but we had that meeting last week, and the listening campaign, and Trustee Boyd's already talked about the opportunity for families to get involved. And also we're trying to find community members who'd be willing to facilitate those focus groups. So if anybody's interested in getting involved in that way, rather than participating but actually facilitating, just reach out to either Trustee Boyd or myself or Dr. Shin, who was actually facilitating for the Student Achievement Committee. That was that. And then the last thing for me is that Trustee Khan and I had an opportunity last week to go to the Adult Transition Program, and we were given a great presentation by Ashley Sachs, who is the transition teacher at 1200 Solano. So it was Ashley and Woody, who's a member of her staff, and the 4 students in the program. And the program itself promotes growth and independence for young adults with disabilities. And we are planning to invite Ashley and students to come and give a presentation here as a spotlight in a few weeks, so sometime in March, because we think it would be really beneficial for the community to learn more about the program. I'm ashamed to say that after being a parent of the district for so long, I knew of the existence of the program. I didn't really know sort of nuts and bolts and what it offers, and it really is a fantastic program. Basically it's internships and just sort of daily living skills for these students who completed high school without a diploma, ages 18 to 22. It's a program that can go on for 4 years. Anyway, we were just so impressed by the presentation. I look forward to having Ashley and her team here in a few weeks to present. Thank you. That's my report.
Okay. I attended the AMS Site Council meeting, and we had some wonderful discussions about the SIPSA goals, and that was really interesting, and it was really nice to kind of hear some more about AMS. Their PTA is hard at work on some really wonderful projects that they will share more about soon. Also, this Friday at AMS is the unveiling of a mural that was a community project. It was a student-led collaborative mural that's in the atrium, I believe. And this will be Friday, January 27th. That's this Friday at 3:20 p.m. And the parent who led this is I'm hoping I pronounced this right, Sweta Chawa, who's also a parent of a 5th grader at Ocean View. So please attend this if you can. It'll be a lovely event. That is my report for today. Okay, so we will now take future agenda items introduced by the board. If anybody has a future agenda item, please share it now.
Okay, go on.
All right, Vice President Boyd.
I think this may be already on the list, but just want to make sure since it was brought up tonight with the indoor air quality, I'm not sure if that's currently planned to be a future agenda item. I think Trustee Khan maybe brought it up.
Okay, we will follow up on that one.
That's the same request as mine, so we're good.
Any other board members who have agenda items to suggest? Trustee Hopwood?
So I know we've already, at the agenda planning meeting, I can mention this, but just to make sure it's documented, just to extend an invitation to actually census to come and present as the spotlight in the future.
Okay, so the transition program spotlight, and I think we've got an email about that. And I am seeing my agenda item is written as future agenda items and matters introduced by the board. Are we doing public agenda item introductions as well on this? Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, if there are any public comments on this item, please share them now.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, just want to mention a couple of things. I don't know if you figured out the Wi-Fi password, but it's Albany Cares, all lowercase. And then the future agenda item would be maybe make it a requirement for a class that the students graduate with a certification in CPR first aid or AED or AED. Through either, the proper companies, Red Cross or American Heart Association. I think that would be a great requirement, at least starting out with the high school seniors to graduate. If not, just introducing it as freshmen. And the reason for that being is sports. Things can happen during practice, things can happen during games, and also things can happen off the campus. So we want to give these tools to save life, the proper knowledge to our students how to save a life. And so I think that would be a good place to start, is just introducing CPR, first aid, AED to the students. That way they have life-saving skills if something were to happen at home or on campus, in a bathroom where teachers may not be or something, and also, it could be used off campus at a high school dance or something. So I just think that would be a great idea, something just to really look into, just give our students those skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. All right, and that concludes our meeting. We'll see everyone again on February 14th. Yes, please dress accordingly. We will brighten this place.
It's really fine.
I'm liking that the Albany Teachers Association shirts are red this year. Maybe we can get our hands on some. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.